Hi, I'm Guido. I'm a sex addict. Oh, wait. Wrong meeting. Let's start out with a moment of silence, see if I can tap into the power. Okay, my name is Greg, and I am an alcoholic. First of all, if you got any resentments after this, you can have McCabe. And it's ironic how I ended up here tonight. It's like I was out in the park, and this really happened. 27 years of sobriety, and this happened to me the other day. Was it 2 days ago when you asked? She's like the last minute type. And I was out in the truck, and I was thinking, I was going through a lot of stuff trying to get Billy Ray over there to our club. And let's all pray for him because it happened today. He is now our property manager. Man, what resistance we went up against. But they didn't realize we work for God. But I was out in the parking lot, and I was honestly thinking of giving up. And I thought maybe I'd just smoke a little weed. Man, my son's smoking weed. And I immediately got out of my truck and came in. I'm at the bar, and Kate walks over, and she says, "Hi, what are you doing Friday night?" And I immediately looked for John. It's like, man. They're still together. And then I heard this voice say, "Hey, Grandpa, you want to share?" So anyway, that's another deal there. And I was taught that you can't say no. Thank you, Kate, for asking me. This is definitely a privilege to be up here. I'm nervous as heck, but I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to try not to have a potty mouth. First of all, I'll start with this. This jacket, the reason I'm wearing it is I opened my closet today. I don't have any good clothes. My clothes are all work clothes. Well, I have some. They just don't fit me anymore. And this was my brother's jacket, and it's been in my closet for 20 years. He died in 2004. And I said, well, that'd be kind of neat, man, to wear that jacket tonight, and kind of honor my brother. He was a fantastic brother. But then I reached in the pocket and did not have a clue that this was in there. And this was a watch that was given to my dad when he retired. He died in 1995, a year before I got sober. And it was a watch that was given to him when he retired from Austin Industries. And I thought that was really cool because I didn't even remember it was in there. And then this box was in there, and it was my mother's watch. And I thought, wow, how cool, So I'm just going to take them with me tonight. And know I got a little spiritual protection up there. So I'm supposed to tell you what it's like, what happened. Wait a minute, let me pull my notes out. I've seen somebody else do this. Of course, I'm just see where I'm going to start out. I talked about Cade. And everybody here knows me, and I told this story before. I don't have a funny story. It was pretty serious and I learned a lesson about trying or asking God to allow me to make people laugh. And I think I told you all this. My sponsor way back when sent me somewhere to talk. And I said, God, I want to, because you pray before you get up here. And I said, God, I want to make these people laugh. And because I know I don't have a funny story. And got a couple of new guys from the Lyerly Club, and we went to the place I had to speak. And man, the spirit was flowing, and I was going. And it was kind of boring, and my teeth flew out of my mouth, and I caught them midair. And it was like 20 minutes later, I was like, okay, guys, okay, that's enough. They laughed for 20 minutes while I asked for it. It just wasn't the way I thought he was going to do it, But, so I haven't asked God to let me make anybody laugh since then. So, what point in my life, how did I possibly get to this point in my life that I wanted to take my life? And I thought I would start out with this.
Somebody save me from myself. I spent so long living in hell. They say my lifestyle is bad for my health. It's the only thing that seems to help. All of this drinking and smoking is hopeless, but feel like it's all that I need. Something inside of me's broken. I hold on to anything that sets me free. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. I'm a lost cause. Baby, don't waste your time on me. I'm so damaged beyond repair. Life has shattered my hopes and my dreams. What if the night sky was missing the moon? There were no shooting stars to use wishing on you. And all of my sorrows, I just washed them down. It's the only peace I've ever found. All of this drinking and smoking is hopeless, but feel like it's all that I need. Something inside of me's broken. I hold on to anything that sets me free. I'm a lost cause.
I guess thinking back to when I reached that point that Jelly Roll had reached, you know, going to prison and wanting to take your life. I mean, what could possibly have happened to a human being who reaches a point that wants to take a gift that was freely given, the gift of life? And I had reached that stage in my life on August 5th, 1996, because that was the day I cried out in desperation. I wanted it all to end. And this is my story and how it started. What happened, what it was like, and what it's like now. I was born in a little town outside of Cleveland, Ohio. A little town called Paynesville, Ohio. I think that's like the before effect of coming to AA. Paynesville, Ohio. In fact, it made the Grapevine at one of their humor sections. Of course, I stole that magazine when I saw that. But I was born to Ann and Larry Pasquarelli. What a wonderful pair of parents to have. My mother and father were beautiful people, and they tried their best to raise 4 Catholic Irish children, and they did the best they could. My dad was a Seabees in the Navy. He was a very disciplined man. He was a builder. That's what the Seabees were. They were builders. He built his own home when he was 18. That's where we lived, in Ohio. My mother was a librarian at the Catholic school where we went. And I remember, as far back as I can, I don't remember the day I was born, and I remember this Catholic school, and I hated school. I don't have a high education. I couldn't stand it. I got thrown out of school, a Catholic school in the 5th grade because I was unruly. I believe I have an attention deficit. I couldn't stand to be in the classroom. I wanted to be outside. And I just never felt like I fit in. I didn't belong anywhere. And I was a bad actor, so they would send me to the library. Go to the library where my mom was, you know, and I'd go in the back room and steal her cigarettes and smoke and drink coffee, you know. Cool, because they smoked in there. They couldn't smell it. And so my bad acting, I had 2 brothers and a sister, and man, they were always picking on me. I was the baby of the family. They were always picking on me. And thinking back, when I got kicked out of that school, I disgraced the family. My father was disgusted, but I didn't know what the problem was, you know. That I was already going down the corner, hanging out with the gang, smoking weed. You know, I didn't see the goodness in my father. I wanted to be on the corner with the guys that didn't have anything. So I would go home and I would steal the wine from the cellar, and I was so bad. I'd steal money out of my dad's can because I was selfish and self-centered. I wanted what I wanted. And I didn't know what my problem was. I didn't have a clue. And this went on for a long time. My teenage years, I remember my brothers, my parents, my dad would work at the American Legion. He would bartend. And of course, my mom had to go there and make sure he wasn't going with the girls. They left at like 7, and by 7:15 there was a full band playing in our basement. We had a pool table, and my dad had a bar down there where he entertained his friends. And of course, my brothers entertained their friends. And man, there was smoking going on and the drinking, and that's how I got started into weed and doing all that other things. And then at about 20 to 11, it's like me and my sister were told, clean up the house. And everybody was gone. And it went on for a long time. And I just remember that's all I wanted to do. I just started to a point where that's all I wanted was drugs, sex, and rock and roll. I think it was around the age of 11 that the babysitter that my parents used to leave me with, she was a female, and she started molesting me. Of course, I was a willing participant, but I believe that's what they call it. And it was like all the women in my life, which were a lot of my sister's girlfriends, at 11, 12, 13, they were all molesting me. That's what you'd call it. They were all older than me. So that's why I still today have a hard time having a relationship with a female. Or, of course, I'm not gay, so that's not going to happen. And if that's your thing, that's your thing, but that's not me. I tried marriage. It didn't work. But this went on, and of course, by the age of 14, I was on probation. I had a probation officer in my life. I had to go to a special school. And then by the age of 16, I was arrested for sales of narcotics. And I just can't imagine the pain. Well, I can. I was putting my family through. I remember my grandmother, the Italian side, coming and praying with me in the juvenile home, and my aunt, and their prayers were finally answered how many years later, 24 years later. But I found myself, that's all I wanted to do was drugs and drink and get high. I lived for it, I couldn't live without it. That's what I thought. And by the age of 16, everybody knows my story. I was arrested, and then I escaped, and I got down here, and they caught me down here, and they extradited me back, and the war story that they sent me to a psychiatrist or a psychologist in the state capital, which was Columbus, and he had to give a report whether they were going to charge me as a juvenile or an adult. And his report to the judge was that he couldn't make a legal, just, rational decision whether I was capable of being charged as an adult or juvenile, so they left it up to me. The judge said, I'm going to leave it up to you. If you go as a juvenile, I'm going to find you guilty and sentence you to the Ohio Youth Commission until you're 21 years of age with the evidence presented to me. If you go as an adult, you're entitled to bond. You're entitled to bond. Bam. Yeah, I can get out. So they bound me over as an adult. I had some friends, came and paid my bond, and I was out. And I did what they told me to do. I did what the family told me to do. And we ended up having a 3-day trial, and they found me guilty. You know why they found me guilty? Because I was. And I was guilty. And I was sentenced to 11 to 45 years, which you all know. She thought that was funny. Hey, I got a laugh out of you. And I was sentenced to the Youth Commission, or Shawshank, as you all know. If you look up Mansfield State Reformatory, you can see the pictures of it. It was a very decrepit, horrible place to be. But that wasn't enough. I made my first AA meeting there because they had the drunks coming from Akron, and they were bringing coffee and donuts. That's why I went to the church, the chapel, to get coffee and donuts. And I never heard a thing they said. And so when I was paroled to Texas in 1980, I got out on what's called a governor's parole. My uncle was a personal friend of the governor, and they got me out and set me down here. And before I got to Texas, I was high and stoned, and the people on the bus gave me some weed, and they had liquor. And before I got here, I was drunk and stoned, and now I'm 20, and it just started all over again. And I went into construction, and the drinking never stopped, man. It was to see how much we could drink. The friends I had were like 40 of us from Ohio, and we had our bar over I forget the name of it, over in Southwest Houston, and that's where we all went and drank. And that's what I drank to get drunk, man. I drank because I drank to drink. And I'm getting lost now. And so I met a girl, and she was pregnant, but her mother owned a bar. What an ideal for a drunk. You know, it's called Vapors Lounge. You know, we had shirts that said Vapors Lounge, and they had mugs, A through Z, and you could rent a mug for $35 a month and drink all the beer you wanted. And so continued doing that and doing the cocaine and all the side dishes, and 2 HPD officers, it's kind of like bodyguards in there, and they were doing drugs with us in the bar, and the drinking never stopped and just continued on and on. And I went to prison once, and I went to prison again. I made City Under Siege. You know, I thought I was a big star. High-speed chase down 59. Took a guy hostage, had pistols, rifles in the car. Ended up with 10 years. Wow. It's cool in Texas. But anyway, I went 4 times total in Texas. And it was August 5th, 1996, in the Modo Motel. You all heard it, in Cloverleaf, Texas, on Freeport Street, when we had a cooler full of alcohol, and I was stealing checks from my mom. My dad had died way back when, and I was cashing those checks and stealing from the stores to supply my habit, and I'd had enough. I'd reached that pitfall, incomprehensible demoralization that we were talking about in the big book, and also what Jelly Roll was talking about. You know, he was suicidal also at that point of his life, and I just wanted to die. And I looked over my right shoulder and I said, God, if you're real, please stop this madness. And that's 12 hours later, I woke up in the Wallaceville substation floor. You know, so from the time that I was 12 when I started doing hard drugs, all the way until the time I was 36, man, that's all life was about. You know, I dropped out of school in the 9th grade. I didn't get an education. I took a little college in prison and got my GED, but that was back in 1978 in Shawshank. And but that's pretty much my story. Until I cried out in desperation that day, and God took him about 12 hours to answer that prayer. And I mean, all I did all my life was take, and hurt other people. And I didn't care about anybody or anything, just getting high. And it started with that first drink. When I was in prison this last time, see, AA wouldn't have worked for me. I went through intensive programs along with AA. I went through therapeutic behavioral modification programs. I don't know if you know anything about them. I still don't, but I know I went through it. And it's very intense to be in a room with like 50 guys, and you've got one circle and another circle, and you think you're doing good, and then somebody's addressing you on your negative behavior, and they're blowing your wig back. And I learned a lot about myself in there. And I started learning how to live life without drugs and alcohol in prison. and started working the steps. I had a female counselor, a male counselor, with the issues that I had. I had a sponsor that came in and worked the steps with me. But then I got transferred and, trying to do this stuff in prison. But I got transferred to the Stevenson unit in Cuero, Texas. And that's where I say a lot of my spiritual growth happened in the transition, because I found myself doing the deal down there, and I ended up in this program called Operation Outreach. And this is just a program that just not any inmate can get into. And I know it was God, and it became where I was no longer about what Greg could but what Greg could give. And it was there was 15 of us. And it wasn't Scared Straight anymore. It was called Operation Outreach. And we geared it towards reaching out to the youth instead of trying to scare them. And we had presentations that we did, and we were 15 of us, racially balanced, so that we could reach whatever race, whoever they brought to us. And we had an 85% success rate of recidivism, and that's pretty good, considering, thinking about how I was as a juvenile. And that was, finally, I was part of something good. I was making the newspapers, I went in there for high-speed chase, down 59 and taking a guy hostage. And I was in there because we were part of a program. And then I started getting the freedom, walking the streets, the freedom inside, but they used to let us walk the streets of Cuero when they had a flood and no supervision. And I thought that was really cool, man. And of course, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the program and the spiritual aspects of the program working in my life. And the change was taking place. Going from this hard-nosed, hardened criminal that didn't do nothing. I was robbing drugstores at gunpoint, man. That's pretty scary, considering that, it's parts you don't tell. I was robbing drugstores, but I didn't tell you that I had those 2 sacks of drugs, and I left my gun on the cash register. And the pharmacist actually picked it up, and he had it pointed at the back of my head when I was running out the door, but he didn't want to kill anybody. And of course he couldn't, because they didn't have no bullets in it. I didn't want to hurt anybody, I mean, how ironic to go robbing stores without bullets, But I just really, really didn't want to hurt anybody. But yeah, we got away with that for a month till another guy got caught. And I ended up, that was part of my sentence in Shawshank. But when I was released from prison down here in 2000, January 3rd of 2000, in there I'd gone back to the faith I knew as a little child, and that was the Catholic faith. And we had the people that brought us in, the laymen and the priests. I made my confirmation that I should have made in the 6th grade, but I got kicked out in the 5th, so I didn't get to make it. But I made the confirmation, and I decided that's what I believed in, what they were teaching. And I became part of that. And I picked a Father Gregory in Port Lavaca who came in and sponsored me, and he was my sponsor when I made my confirmation. And of course, making the confirmation, I had to pick a saint that I thought would have qualities that I would like to be like. And I didn't make the connection until sometime later that it was St. Francis of Assisi. And that's our 11th-step prayer. And I didn't make that connection. I mean, it wasn't too long ago that I actually made it, man. That's my patron saint. And that's the reason I picked him, because of that prayer. Was it the 11th-step prayer, right? And wherever there's hatred, let me sow love, and all the rest of that prayer. There was a philosophy I had and when I was going through the therapeutics before I got transferred down to Cuero, and I was getting really frustrated because you had to memorize this philosophy, and you couldn't go into phase 2 until you memorized it. And it was hung right above my head in a bunk bed I was in. Because Clint just gets me, man, the way he can memorize everything, it's hard to believe he smoked all that crack he says he smoked. But I could read something. I've been reading the Daily Reflections for 27 years, and every day I read it, it's a new story, But that philosophy, and this truly happened, it fell off the wall and hit me in the head when I was sleeping one night, and I sat up and I went, I got it! And I was able to memorize. Let's see if I got it. It says, we believe every individual is worthy of respect. and capable of change. Change begins with reflections in our mirror, wherein we will find either our best friend or our worst enemy. With honesty and willingness, we will free ourselves from our old negativism, destructive habits, and behaviors. We will exert maximum effort and move ourselves out of the dark nightmare of our addiction and into the sunlight of recovery. We will realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. We will blaze a path toward joy and serenity for those who choose to follow, and we will ultimately find that love, peace, joy, and the rest of the virtues are the just rewards. And I had to memorize that. And it was so cool because that's the way it happened. It fell and hit me in the head, and I memorized it. And that's probably the only one I know completely. But when I was released, these people were called the disciples of Jesus and Mary. They came into the prisons, and they did that's where I met them. And what happened was I was supposed to go into the drug program, and I filed a medical writ against them because that's another miracle. I was spontaneously cured of hepatitis C. There's nothing in my body to show that I ever had it. But these people, I filed a writ, so their thing was they took my parole and sent me back to a unit in Huntsville to give me treatment, but they didn't want to give me treatment because it was so costly. So they gave me what's called an FI-5. If I had somewhere to go, I could go. Well, I wasn't going to the drug program now, and I didn't have anywhere to go because I burnt every single bridge there was to burn. I had nowhere to go. And so attending these Catholic classes, Bill Brossart, man, he was a towering man. He passed from cancer, and he was a towering man. And the love of God this man had for God was just awesome. And one day after 2 weeks, he came in and gave me an address, and he said, give this to the parole lady. And it was about a month later, and I was paroled to a house over here off of Shepherd Drive. And ironically, it was right next to the facility that I originally was supposed to go to, but it was a mansion with these great big white pillars on it. And I remember I cried walking up that driveway. And of course, I was still selfish and self-centered. I took my little fan, and what else did I have? A couple little things I took from prison, my big book, still with me, and my daily reflections. And I walked up that driveway and knocked on that door, and the lady let me in. She was from a church that knew people at my church, and that's where I stayed. And I remember walking into this bedroom, and it was a massive bedroom, and it was like, this is it, man. This is recovery. This is sobriety. This is the new life, And Bill had picked me up at the bus stop. This is the part I got to tell. I called him in Huntsville, and I said, hey, Bill, I'm at the bus stop. He said, I said, what do I do? Because you said call somebody. The guys from AA said call somebody. I called Bill, and he came and got me. And he said, stay there. Or no, he told me, get on the bus and come to Houston, dummy. So when I got to Houston, I called him again, and he said, get in. And he took me to St. Martha's in Kingwood. And he said, we have what's called a perpetual adoration chapel. And he said, now go in there and thank God for your new life. And I spent the next 2 hours on my knees in there thanking God for the new life that I had no idea what was going to happen because I didn't know how to live out here sober. And I knew how to live in there sober. And so I had, 2 years and 4 months when I got out. And these 50 disciples, they took me and they loved me to death, man. I remember I went to Bill's house the first night. That's right. And I was there, and it's like a strange place, and the families at the table, his wife and the kids, and everybody's laughing and just carrying on. And I remember at our dinner table when I was a kid, that's where we got yelled at, for the day. And Dad's hitting the table, and it's like, and I've seen all this love and this laughter, and it's like I remember grabbing the table, and he's seen it, and he said, what's the matter, Greg? And I said, I don't fit in here. And he doesn't cuss, but he said, who in the hell ever told you had to fit in anywhere? He said, just be here and be part of. He said, you don't have to say anything, just listen. And I did. And I got a little bit more at ease of being around people. And because I still didn't know what was going to happen. Well, the next night, they had a bunch of nuns and priests over. And they couldn't shut me up. The Spirit was flowing, man, and I was able to talk to people and interact with them, and that was really cool for me because I never done that before. I don't know what we were talking about, whatever it was, or my new life, what happened to me, the change, because they were astonished too. I was like a pilot project. They had never actually, they worked with, fed the orphans like it says in the Bible. They took care of the widows. They went into the prisons. They went on the streets and fed the homeless. They did all the things that God asked of us, and they were teaching me these things. And so I don't remember what we talked about. But from there, that's when he took me to this house, mansion that I was going to be living in. And so he would tell me, I think I had to use a payphone. Y'all remember payphone? I had to use the payphone. And I would call these people. Plus, they had me going to classes at the church in Acres Homes. I can't remember the name of it. But that's where I was going to church, and then classes. We had classes there. Well, it was discipleship was the third one. Prayer in your life and discernment. How do you discern God's will truly, and how do you pray? They taught me how to pray. They taught me how to be a disciple. But there was another story there where I ended up walking away from all of it. But I would call these people, and they would say, okay, come to Kingwood Park and Ride. Well, how do I get there? They said, call Metro and find out. They made me do the work. And so I would call Metro and I'd say, hey, well, how do I get to Kingwood Park and Ride? And they'd tell me what bus to get on. Of course, I was getting bus passes from some place that helps people out when they get out of prison. I was getting food stamps. And I would go out here to Kingwood Park and Ride, and they would pick me up and they would take me to their house. And they'd say, what do you think needs to be done? Because they were going to pay me wages for the day. And I said, well, I could wash the driveway, I could wash the car, paint, cut the grass. And I would stay at their house for 2 or 3 days. What amazed me, though, is when they left to go to work. And they left me alone in their home. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. Somebody trusts me. Somebody trusts me. Because I actually trusted myself. And I did the deal. I prayed every day. And then after 3 days, they would take me back to Kingwood Park and Ride. I'd go back to their house, and then somebody else would have me come to their house. In fact, there was a man right here, and he owned a trucking company. That's how I got into the trucking business. But this is how these people taught me to live out here in the world, because I didn't have a clue how to do it. When they knew it was January, and they knew I needed AA support. I didn't know what I needed. I went to AA in there, and they knew who became my Rito V and Chuck M. Rito became my sponsor because they knew him, and they had a big White Elephant Christmas party at their home. This is like finding he was involved with Shell and oil. This was like a big mansion, and I was like looking at these paintings. I wasn't thinking about how to steal them. I was like, wow, these are really nice paintings, but. They had that party, and they invited Chuck and Rito, and that's how Rito became my sponsor. And eventually, it became not a good place, and then Rito moved me into his trailer over behind the 24-hour club. And I went from the mansion to a rat-infested trailer, and I didn't care because I had a key to the gate. The back fence had razor wire on it, but I was free. I was a free man inside. And so that's how I became involved in the 24-hour club. The rest is history. I found out that and I went through phases in AA. I went through the phase that I went through where the family was reunited. My family accepted me back, and I remember sitting at Lyerly, the 24-hour club, crying on Thanksgiving because my family didn't want me around, and that was in 2001. I still had to go visit my mother at where she worked. My sister didn't want me nowhere around. And I remember that trying to live the amends and paying my mother back money I'd stole from her and going to visit her. And then when they didn't know where I lived, and when she went in the hospital, she came down with cancer and was in ICU, and it hit her really hard. And they sent a detective to find me. And I remember back at Lyerly saying, God, I wish my family would accept me back. I can't go there on Thanksgiving. And pretty much I prayed for that, because what my rest of my family saw was that I was there. I was there at my mother's side every day. And when I showed up, when this detective came and found me, the first thing I did was call my sponsor. What am I supposed to do? And he said, Go and be the son you were always supposed to be. Be the brother and the cousin and the nephew, and take your spot in your family. So I drove out there, and the first thing I told my sister, what do you want me to do? And she was like, change the piss bag, because she still had that attitude against me. So that was my job. And eventually it got pretty bad, and we had to put her in the hospice. But I was there all the time. And I always speak about the first time I ever met a real live angel. Some people think you're crazy. I am, according to Clint. But we were at the hospice on Holcomb Street, and I had a job. In fact, I had 2 jobs, and that's Bill who taught me about the supernatural gifts of time. When you're doing all the things that God asks for you, he gives you more time in a day. And it's true, I experienced it till I fell away from it. That's another story. And my sister, she had to go to work. My aunt was here from Cleveland. She's in a wheelchair. She wasn't there yet. And I had to go to work, and we were at each other's throat. And all of a sudden, this black lady dropped in between us, put her hands on our shoulders, and we talked about it later. We both had the most calm feeling that and presence of the Spirit came over us, and she said, you can go, your mother's going to be okay. And we both went our way. Never saw that lady again. Never heard anything about her until about 4 years later, when a man was telling his story at the 24-Hour Club, and he was from Austin. And he was in a similar situation at the hospice with his mother. And he was going through something like we were, and he talked about a black lady that dropped in and put her hand on his shoulder and told him it was going to be okay. We shared after that meeting, and there was some tears shed, because I don't care what anybody says, she was a real live angel. And that was the first angel. No, that was the second angel. The first one was one that I was sitting at Lyerly, and I had to quit my job where I was at washing dishes because it wasn't a good place. And I told my sponsor that, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to pay rent. And he said, don't worry, I know your heart's right. And I was sitting on the front porch of Lyerly, and all of a sudden I was like, dude, where'd you come from? And it was an Indian guy. And he goes, I hear you're looking for a job. It's like, you're thinking, who told you that? And he goes, go down to Ruggles Restaurant. Now mind you, I was washing them dishes religiously, man, because I was free and I was getting a paycheck, and I was living life, going to meetings and conventions and dances, and those are cool. And yeah, I like the dances. I found out I couldn't dance. I didn't drink anymore, but I still went to the dances. And I went down to Ruggles Restaurant, which was at Enron Field when it was still Enron, the baseball stadium, and walked in, and I said, I need to talk to a guy named Doug. And Doug came down, and he was the master chef there. And I said, I'm here for a job. Do you need somebody to take care of this facility? And he goes, are you a friend of Bill and Bob's? Yeah, as a matter of fact. He said, can you start right now? And I said, no, I have a prior commitment, but I can start tomorrow. And thus started my career down there of taking care of the restaurant. And TRC bought me God was giving me all the things I needed to do the things that were being asked of me. And TRC had bought me a lot of equipment. And then the owner of the Astros, I think at the time was McLean, he bought me this great big shed to put all my equipment in. And I would go to the recovery centers and get people to go down there and help me. And that was getting into life, getting into the thing of life. They paid me a salary. And I had been telling my spiritual advisor all along, I need a car. And he's like, no, you don't. Keep riding the bus. You got a fleet of limousines. So I kept riding the bus. And now when I said, I need a car, and he said, no, you don't. You need a truck. You got responsibilities. You got to carry equipment. You need to get you a truck. Oh, yeah, Frank, come get me. And right away I'm going to take over and run the things on myself. And we went out looking at new trucks, and I got a phone call from a girl from the church that went to the trailer, and I wasn't there, and she went to the bar across the street because I had a phone. And she called me. This is ironic the way this happened. And on the back side of the fence where I was living, there was a lot of trees and weeds. I saw it. On the other side of that fence was an old 84 Dodge that wasn't attractive, and it wasn't going to be, look at me and look at what I got. I paid cash for it, and I was able to keep making and paying back the amends because I had to do an amends with the IRS too, and I took care of that. It's called an offer in compromise. I got real lucky there. Found that stuff in the law library. So I did an offer in compromise. But I bought that truck, and I drove that truck for 3 years, you know. I had a license, a driver's license. And that's what was happening to my life out here. I was getting a life. I remember getting my first paycheck. I don't know where I left off at, but I got my first paycheck, and I remember somebody said, "Did you talk to your sponsor about it?" I said, "No, he owes the IRS money. I'm going to go to a financial advisor at the bank," you know. And so I remember walking down Shepherd Drive, that first paycheck I got before the truck, and at the dishwasher, Duho Steakhouse. And I went in and I told this lady, her name was Miss Hernandez, I'll never forget her name, Bank of America. And I said, I've got this $237 check, and I'm a recovering addict and alcoholic. I just got out of prison, and I don't know how to handle money. She said, "Sit down, I'll help you." And she showed me how to save, a savings account. She had me open up a checking account. Then she showed me how to use credit cards to my benefit to make money off of them, so that you're not paying the interest rates. I'm not saying this to say I did, but I have 52 credit cards, and I don't pay the interest. They pay me, and she taught me how to do that. Of course, I used a lot of diesel fuel. That's a whole nother story. But amazing that I went from this guy that robbed drugstores to people actually giving me credit and trusting me. I couldn't get a $20 rock at the crack house, you know. That's how bad I was. And I couldn't go to the bar and get something to drink. You got any money? No, you can't get nothing to drink, you know. That's how bad it was. But the biggest thing that changed that took place in me was that now being at Larley was trying to help the next guy. I remember the first guy, his name was Mike Webster. He became my best friend, and he became like a grandparent to my kids. Well, it looks like I'm going to get out of that story. Wow, I talked that long already. But Mike Webster was my best friend, and he walked in, and he was all drunk. His car was all smashed up, and I remember Rito saying, "Here's your sponsor." So he was my first sponsee. He did good for 10 years, and then he got like $250,000 from Agent Orange. He got paid all the way back to the Vietnam War, and then he really started screwing up when he got all that money. And then he finally died in a care home. He fell and hit his head. But that was 3 years ago. And he got a veterans service at the cemetery. I got to go during COVID is when it happened. That was another story. But I need to get into the part of recovery where I was really screwing up, you know, because I was given all those blessings, working 2 jobs, and being at my mom's side. My brother was on the other side of town getting his esophagus cut out, and I was there, and I was here and there, and, you know, it was the supernatural gift of time, how it was being done. Making my AA, most important thing was I'm making a meeting every day. It said make 90 meetings in 90 days. I made 3 meetings a day for 90 days. What's that, 270 meetings? That's what I did when I first got out. But anyway, so selfishness and self-centered took over in recovery. And it's one of the downfalls that I did where I got spiritually disconnected, man, from God. Because when my mother died, she left me 6 figures twice over. And now my focus was what to do with the money. You know, God was taking care of me all along. I was a bad steward, a very bad steward. And had I stayed into the Spirit and what I was doing, I'd be a multimillionaire right now. Thank God, because I know what would happen. I'd be down on the beach in Jamaica. Hey, bring me another one of them umbrella drinks, you know. And so I'm glad I don't have that money anymore. All that money's gone. And I got selfish, self-centered, decided I need a wife. So I picked the sickest one in the room, ladies, all respect. I thought I could relate to her. So I had one girl pregnant. My sponsor always talked about being married and having a girl pregnant and the mistake he made. So it was like, I guess I tried to top it. So there she came, Miss Rogers Street, USA. You know, it's like, that's going to be my wife, you know. And my sponsor's trying to tell me, Greg, you're here spiritually. She's here 6 months sober. Do you think she's just going to jump up there with you? No. And he's right. I fell down. And hit my head. And so I had 2 girls pregnant, 4.5 months apart. So what I became was selfish and self-centered and wasn't caring about anybody else again, about me and what I could get in my way. I wasn't concerned with their recovery. But I had to go through what I had to go through in order to learn what it is God wanted me to learn. And I learned, because now I got two 18-year-olds, and Jesus Christ, what did I do, you know? But the best thing right now is, happy to say, my son's in Las Vegas playing in a big tournament over there, baseball tournament. They left yesterday, and they should be getting there about right now. They play tomorrow morning at 9 and then 2, and then they play on Sunday, depending on their status. But there's a lot of scouts there. And I can say that God allowed me to withstand, and you heard my upbringing and what I did, and how does a man go from that to trying to raise two kids? You know, I did the best I could. Probably yell a lot like my father. I take some credit for that. But he allowed me to do that. And it was because of you people right here in this room that loved me, no matter how crazy I was, coming in here, talking about what I was going through, people sharing with me about how they were raising their kids, and being able to get through that. Going to Lyerly, working with other people, and I was able to get to this point of my life where my daughter has finally listened to me, because she just got a big chunk of money from a lawsuit, and I got her to invest it and not make the mistakes that I made, to get it away from your hands. And her goal is to go to college. And she's brought all her grades. She was failing terribly. And I had some talks with her, and she brought all her grades. She did that. And she brought them all to A's and B's, you know. And I'm glad to be part of that. They're going to be able to live something I didn't. But I did get to live it. You know, in my baseball games, I didn't get to do all that. I got to be an assistant coach of a baseball team that we took to first place. I don't know the first damn thing about baseball. It's just, I know that God was running my life, and then I was running my life, you know, where I got selfish and self-centered. Then I did some gambling. I got into the gambling thing. And I asked God to relieve me of that, and he took that away from me. So my wife left 10 years ago, no sex, I don't drink, I don't go dancing. Boy, what a pretty boring life. No, it's not. I stay very active at Lyerly. It's about what I can do to help these guys, these new guys coming in right off the street, man, just like here. And that's my passion and my love for that place. And we see it, God working once again over there, and doing what I can, every penny I got, to put into the place to try to get it up and going. And it was only through God's grace and his mercy that I'm able to do that. I don't have a clue what I said tonight. Let me see what I'm supposed to close out with. I wanted to talk one thing about this, that I idolized this girl. She was 32 years old when she appeared on America's Got Talent. Her name was Jane McCreskey. She was from Zanesville, Ohio. And she sang a song that just touched my heart, because when she came on, they asked her what it was about. She said it was about the last year of her life. And it reminds me so much of Rusty and his humility. And Rusty was my sponsor. I don't think y'all know that. We didn't talk about it. When I showed up here, I asked him to sponsor me. And so, and I showed y'all the 27-year chip he gave me that meant so much. But this Jane McCreskey said the song was about the last year of her life. And I caught it as soon as she said it. She didn't say the past year, she said the last year. She knew it was going to be the last year that she was alive, and she got on that stage and she sang a song that she wrote that said, "It's okay." And she said, the song was about we're all a little lost sometimes. And it touched me. I bawled like a baby when she sang this song. She got the golden buzzard. She didn't make it to the next round because the cancer hit her, and she died not too long after that. But just listening to what this girl said when she came off the stage, she said, it's not about the bad things. How did it go? It's not about the bad things that happened to me. And she walked off the stage and she told Terry Crews, I only have a 2% chance of living. She said, but that is so, and a smile, an infectious smile this woman had, that 2% is so much better than 0. And she remained, like I remember Rusty, with the humility, and she had this infectious smile. And that's the way I would like to be able to go out, knowing that her love for God, and that's what I would like to have, is that love for God. And anyway, I don't have any more. I missed a lot of stuff, but read the big book if you want to know what it says. And I want to thank you for letting me get up here and sharing. I hope I said something that somebody here would have heard, a newcomer, because I know you old timers already got this all set. So thank you for listening to me.
We've come to the hour, Jesus.